As you will hear in this video, there's a little bit of background noise. There's a little bit of scratching sounds as though I'm moving around. It's probably because I was moving my phone around, and I do apologize for that. But I went ahead and edited the video as it was. I wanted to come on here and say thanks to everyone that has taken the time out of their day to sit and listen to my videos. Who have liked and subscribed, and I do appreciate it, each and every one. I also wanted to say that I am going to be doing a little follow-up on one of my recent videos that I did on a young boy who went missing in Canada named Simon Wilson. I had a listener reach out to me. She sent me an email and gave me a little bit more information on his story. She had done quite a bit of research into him. And I just wanted to say I appreciate her reaching out to me and offering me some help on the video. I don't ask anyone to edit my videos or to listen to them in advance before I post them. I'm not doing this for a living. This is not a professional, setup to make money or anything like that. I just do this because I enjoy bringing these stories to people. Maybe that some people haven't heard of some of these. Some of the lesser known, especially around Appalachia, where I'm from. I do venture out a little bit and tell stories around other places, and today's story is going to be about a young girl who went missing in Florida. And once again, I just wanted to say thanks, and I hope that everyone enjoys this video. This is the story of Martha Jean Lambert. She went missing on November the 27th, 1985. Martha was a 12-year-old girl living in Florida when she went missing. Foul play is highly suspected in her case. Martha was born March 26, 1973, and was last seen November 27, 1985, in St. Augustine, Florida. Her parents were Harold and Margaret Ann Lambert. Martha was described as a shy girl, but she was kind. She loved spending time with her friends. However, her life was not perfect. Her father was an alcoholic and had a temper that was explosive. Her parents were often fighting. Due to unknown reasons, possibly child abuse, Martha and her two brothers spent much of their young lives in foster care, living in many different homes. Despite Martha's small stature, she was known to be a force to be reckoned with. Martha was the peacekeeper between her two older brothers, and she got along well with them, people say. She enjoyed spending time with her mother. Her mother called Martha her best friend. Martha enjoyed attending church. She had poor grades, but she liked school. She was described as a girl who just liked country music, and she liked to play soccer. She was well liked by other kids in the school. She loved her family, but because they were estranged quite a bit and she was moved around to different foster homes, it was hard for her to be, with her family because of her father's drinking, and so she spent quite a bit of time when she could at her grandmother's house. When school ended that day, she went to a friend's residence for some time afterwards. She then left the friend's house and said she was going home on Curry Lynn Road in St. Augustine. They were expecting her at around 7:30 p.m. Whatever happened afterwards is not clear. Her family gave varying stories of the events of that night. Martha was reported missing at 3 o'clock in the morning, when no one could find her. Martha was described as a white female with blonde hair and blue eyes. She was 4 foot 5 inches tall and weighed about 70 pounds. She had a birthmark on her upper chest and on the front of her right thigh. Her top front teeth were slightly protruding, She was last known to be wearing a short-sleeved dress and a two-piece matching swimsuit underneath. Authorities began to search for Martha after she was reported missing. They searched areas along State Road 207. Nothing was ever found, and the case started to turn cold. They never gave up hope of finding her. Since the day she vanished, Martha's mother believed she had been kidnapped and taken from the area. According to her, on the night of Martha's disappearance, she and her daughter were at a social gathering when Martha said, "Mom, I'm going over. I'll be back in 5 minutes." She left the gathering and never returned. When Margaret noticed the amount of time that had passed, she went out to look for Martha. Later on that night, when she couldn't locate her, she reported her missing. Authorities questioned everyone in the area. Some neighbors stated that they had seen Martha walking along Curry Lynn Road later that night. Others reported that they seen a suspicious green van in the area. It was the only vehicle that was unknown to the area. No one in the area owned a van like that. It was apparently spotted soon after Martha left. Her brother, David Lambert, gave varying stories as to what occurred that night. He once said that Martha was getting into the back of a black vehicle. Authorities said the story did not hold up. He would then go on to say that he and Martha were having dinner that night, and Martha said she was going out. When he asked her where she was going, she told him it was none of his concern, and she refused to tell him. She left, and David watched as she walked out into the dark. Martha's case was initially considered a runaway case, but authorities believed that Martha had met with foul play. Now, many, including Martha's mother, believed that she had been abducted. They believed she had been taken by a non-family member after she had gone outside that evening. Authorities also suspected that Martha had been abducted by a stranger and went to great lengths to look for clues as to who it could have been. They were never able to find anyone that they could actually question about this. No one was ever arrested in connection to abducting Martha. Several suspects have been named, but there was never any evidence to prove anything in order to even really form a case in that, of abduction. Now, here's where things kind of get strange in this story. David Lambert, the middle child of the Lambert family, has always been named as a possible suspect in this case. He gave many varying statements, and some believe he was the last to see his sister. He gave different statements to the police over the years. At one point, he said that Martha was alive and had contacted him, and told him that she was fine and that everyone should just leave her alone. Investigators have always believed that David was hiding something, that he knew something more about Martha's disappearance. He was 14 years old when Martha went missing. In 2000, David was arrested for attempting to pass a bad check. He told authorities that he was responsible for his sister's death and stated that he had buried her in an area known as the Pits. This was a mine not far from where they lived. The mine was searched, but investigators never found anything. They never found Martha's body. They never found any clothing or anything to say that anyone had dug, a grave or anything in that area. Some people believe that he was just troubled, and others believe that he was just telling one more story, that he had told so many different ones. In 2009, once again, he confessed to killing Martha. He said that on November the 27th, he and Martha left the Lambert home because their parents had gotten into a fight, and they went to Little Champ's convenience store. He said that he had $20 with him and that he gave Martha $4 to spend. He then stated that he and Martha went to an abandoned Florida Memorial College, and he said that they got into a fight because Martha asked him to give her more money, and he wouldn't. David says Martha slapped him across the face, and he pushed her. He said he pushed her so hard that when she fell, she hit her head and died. When David realized what happened, he pulled Martha up and noticed a large hole in the back of her head, and blood was pouring out. He says he called out for help, hoping someone would come and help her, but no one ever showed up. He was scared of what his parents would do and the police, and that he said that he took a broken piece of a road sign and dug a makeshift grave and put Martha in the hole and went home. Now, authorities were certain that David was telling the truth about his sister's death, but he was not charged with manslaughter due to his age at the time of Martha's supposed murder, or accidental death, whichever way they wanted to look at it. They say that he wouldn't have been charged with murder and that the statute of limitations had expired. Martha's case was closed, but authorities have stated that they can reopen the investigation if it comes to that. Martha's mother remains convinced that she was kidnapped and said that David has a history of telling lies and making up stories, and that he's always been troubled, and that the police have had at least 4 or 5 different interviews with him where he told different stories. Even the one where he claimed that he had buried her near this mine, and they went to the trouble of going and digging, and they didn't find anything. And I'm sure that they went out to where he said that he had left her the second time, and they didn't find anything then either. Martha's remains have never been found, and the police closed the case, saying that it had been solved, but the family and other people in the community say no. This is not true. David later recanted his confession and said he did not have any idea what had happened to Martha. He said that he has long-standing emotional and mental problems and has been treated for that. He mentioned the possibility that Martha could still be alive, that she may have been kidnapped. Investigators and forensic teams spent 2 days searching the ground where David said that he left Martha's body. Construction and demolition in the area over the years may have moved the grave. Martha has never been recovered. Authorities hope to find her and collect DNA samples. Her DNA and her dental records and things like that have been kept. Authorities hope that they can enter them into NamUs. There is still hope that Martha's case will one day be solved. Now, my personal feeling about this is, if they didn't find her in the first location that he claimed he put her, and they didn't find her in the second location that he claimed he left her, did they do any kind of mental evaluation on him? Did they go into his history? Did they speak with his psychiatrist or other doctors that have treated him to find out if he does have a history of mental problems? I don't know what was going on. Like they said, this family was estranged, and they often lived apart in foster care, and the parents had a history of violence. The father was an alcoholic. So this child, could have been groomed by someone. Did they go and interview and speak with the family of the child that she had supposedly spent the evening with after, they said when school let out that day, but this was the night before Thanksgiving. Were they even in school at that time? I would really have liked to have found some answers on all those questions. So a different story that I found about her was that she had spent some time at a neighbor's home, and she left to return home, said that she was going home to have dinner and that her brother David was there. And she told her brother David that she was going out. Now, what 12-year-old child says, I'm going out on Thanksgiving Day and leaves and is never seen? And everyone just says, okay, she's going out, she's 12. Authorities in Northeast Florida say that they've closed a 24-year-old case of a missing 7th grader, but the mother says no. Martha Jean Lambert vanished from her home on November the 27th, 1985. Her mother, Margaret, says she is convinced that her daughter was picked up by a stranger. I don't know if that's necessarily true. It may not have been a stranger. This was a child who was often left to her own devices and was often left to walk around the neighborhood on her own. She could have been groomed by someone in that neighborhood, an uncle, a friend of one of these families, someone who, lived in one of the homes nearby. It doesn't necessarily have to be a stranger. However, the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office said that Martha's son David confessed to accidentally killing his sister, and they believed his story and that they closed the case. Did they just want to close this case and be done with this, and they just thought, this girl's gone, we're never going to find her, so why go through the trouble of leaving it open as a cold case, which is, in my personal opinion, what they should have done. Investigators had long suspected or considered Lambert a suspect, but they never had any evidence. Lambert, now 38 at this time, this was in 2010, said that he saw his sister as she walked off to play, but later changed the story and said they got into an argument over money and that he pushed her after she slapped him and she fell and busted her head open and was bleeding to death. The sheriff's office wants the case closed. This is from the mother. The sheriff's office just wants this case closed. They don't want to search for my daughter. They want this swept under the rug, so they found a scapegoat. The man who confessed to killing his sister in 1985 is now saying he only told detectives what they wanted to hear. I believe that that's probably true. So many years had passed at this point, and her name kept coming up. And were they searching for her, or did he bring her name up while he was there for other, he'd been brought in for other reasons, and he brings her name up. And the police are done with this. They don't want to continue searching, so they accept his confession and don't even bother to charge him with anything. Tampering with evidence, abuse of a corpse, anything like that, they didn't charge him with. So I don't know that they really believed his story, that they just really wanted to be done with this. Detectives insist that a person who is lying would not have been as overwhelmed with grief and anxiety. Well, everyone that knew this boy, or man at this point, said that he had mental problems and emotional problems. And maybe he really, felt grief because his sister was gone. There's no doubt about it, said Detective Sean Tice. He's 100% honest about where he buried her. Well, why didn't you find her body there? I know a lot of years had passed, and they're using the excuse that construction work in the area may have caused her body to have been moved, but, did they dig enough to really look for any remains at all? Tice wrote in his report that Lambert was the first one that called out for help, but no one responded. He said he didn't run home and tell his parents because he feared that he would have gotten into trouble. And this is what was put in the police report. Instead, he said he took a broken piece of a road sign and dug a 3-foot deep grave in the sandy ground. It's not what he said, it's how he said it, said the detective. what people need to understand is the confession is real because the emotion was real. So the police believe that because this guy was emotional and that because he was able to emotionally give this statement, that that was the confession and that was the truth, even though they had already had one confession from him that turned out not to be true. The most recent story that I was able to come across on Martha's case was from 2019. The police are sticking by their belief that the brother killed her when he confessed to it, even though he confessed to two different times in two different ways that he supposedly killed her. The police believe that there's some truth in both stories. They did take cadaver dogs out and search the area where he claimed to have buried her body, and they claimed that the dog did show interest in one spot, but they searched that area and they never found any traces of Martha's remains or clothing or anything. Police say that over the years, construction work had taken place in the area, and they believe that Martha's body had probably been dug up with the construction and the earth being moved around. They don't believe they'll ever find her remains, but they do believe the brother's confession. Now, the mother disputes his story and says that he has a long history of telling lies, and he's just a very troubled person who's had a lot of mental problems and emotional problems. But whatever the case is, Martha's case, they consider it to be solved. The police say that they're not reopening the case. They consider the brother's confession, and they believe that Martha died. And the mother wants the case reopened. She wants to hire someone to come in and take a new look at this case, but I don't know if they ever will. But whatever happened to Martha Lambert is, at least according to the police, has been solved, but according to public opinion and her mother, she doesn't believe that it's been solved. And the brother did recant his story, but the police refused to accept that he was, had the changed story, that he says that this didn't actually happen. They don't believe that. They believe his first confession that he killed her. So, or he said it was an accident and that he shoved her so hard that she fell and hit her head and died as a result of that. So that's where things stand right now with her case. And thanks for watching.